So these are the things that we're going to basically covering, and it's going to, these are, um, we're going to be sort of just going over the basics and doing a demo of it. Um, and then we would just generally recommend that you go and practice. Um, One of the things we try to do is have faculty have their own sandbox course where they can actually practice and work inside. So if you don't have one, I think Paula, you have several, you have at least one, don't you? Um, but Kelly, I don't know if you have a sandbox course.
Not that I know of. I do not.
Okay. What you can
Okay.
do, okay. And that's just something that just requesting through LTS through the help desk, you can have one set made for you. But again, these are going to be going to learn for basically creating, modifying, and editing the Folio gradebook with the following learning objectives. And we'll go one by one through these. So,
Steve, excuse me, before you get started, can I just little tips for webinar? Down at the bottom, you
sure.
should have a black toolbar and there's about 6 little buttons. And if you want to type any questions in the chat area, there's a little button that has a chat bubble on it. And you can select that button and you'll see the chat area appear on the right side of your screen. Same thing for the little button with the image of a person. That's the listing of the participants. And then if you want to turn off your mic, there's a little button with a microphone on it. And I'll check you have sandbox scores. Okay.
Should we turn off our mic, or since this is being recorded, or what's the proper way to like ask questions?
I think what we've generally been doing is just asking people to turn their microphones off,
Okay.
and that will prevent any kind of feedback that might that could possibly enter. And then if you could just ask a question in the chat area, Julie's going to be checking, and when you make any comments there.
Right. Or since there's 4 of us, I suggest when we take pauses to switch to talk about a different topic, maybe we can stop and you can turn on your mic to ask questions as well.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so let's see. What I want to do is the first thing that we want to just make a comment on is that it's really helpful to have your syllabus completely laid out and as much as possible so that you have how many assignments that you're going to use, discussions if you're going to use them, or quizzes. And actually let me open up one other thing in this. See if I can move this out of the area here. No, it's not letting me do that. Here we go. Now I can do that. I want to open up this diagram, or actually an infographic of a syllabus that we're going to be using. Pardon, I should have had this opened.
If you can't find it there, it's in the Gradebook course.
There it is.
Yep.
Okay. There it is. Okay. So this is for those who are in, this is a syllabus or content from the syllabus from our Teaching Online course. But basically what it is to demonstrate, again, for each module that you've listed out, that you have how many discussions that you'll have, how many quizzes. And by doing this, it really helps you to create and develop your gradebook in Folio. So here, for the entire Teaching Online course, there are 5 discussions, there are 4 quizzes, and again 5 assignments. Okay, so by breaking it down and categorizing it this way, you'll see as we build the gradebook out that this is a very helpful thing. Okay, so let me go back to the Folio course. Okay, and again, that's the first thing. The next is actually what we want to do is we're going to use the quiz wizard within Folio, and you can access that here from the top of the top menu bar. There is this grades option link, and you
And
press
it's actually,
grades.
is it the Gradebook wizard, right? Instead of the
Right, the
quiz
gradebook.
wizard.
Right, I'm sorry. From there, you have these three options. You can see that this has opened up what a traditional gradebook would look like. But the second option is manage grades. The third option is the setup wizard. Again, so that's what we want to select. And generally, the first time that you open the setup wizard in a course, it'll typically be set, at least for a new course, it'll be set with the default settings. So this is where you can actually change them. I'm going to click Start. And then there are three different options for grading. So you can use either a weighted system. So if you use percentages, the point system, and again, what I just showed you, the syllabus from the Teaching Along course uses the point system, and we'll probably just use that as a demonstration. And then there's also this formula option, so that if you're very adept at creating formulas through like either Excel or whatever, you can import that in. And I don't think I've known any faculty who actually use this. These again are the most common of the two, and we're going to just continue using points because that's part of our example. So I'm going to select continue, and then in step 2 is the option for final grade released. Again, this is for the faculty or the instructor view of the grade book. So do you want the first option is a calculated final grade. So this is the grade that is set based on how you set up your course, with however many quizzes, assessments, or discussions. But it doesn't allow you to edit the grade, at that point. So I think most commonly is to use the adjusted final grade, and this allows you to modify a grade before you actually release them. And this option is, again, if you select automatically release the final grade, this is for if you select this, once the final grade is created and released, it automatically goes into the user's or your student's grade book. So depending on whether you want that to be seen or not, you can choose that option. Okay. Step 3 is to just decide whether, for grade calculations, whether you want to drop an ungraded item. And again, what Folio provides is these little question marks. If you're not quite sure, you can always click them and it gives you a little bit of an explanation. But here is if you drop the grade item, any assessments that have not been inputted yet, they're not counted in the final grade. And so most faculty typically choose to do this. The other option is to treat ungraded items as 0. So this will actually kind of artificially lower a student's total grade, by choosing this, because anything that they have not taken yet will be given as a 0. Okay. And again, this is to choose whether you want to automatically update the grade as each assessment is taken. So I think that's a pretty common one to select. This is to choose default grade schemes. This is not something that we have an option of changing. It's done as a percentage, and you'll see where that enters into play. As we continue, this is for your view. Do you want, how many decimal points do you want to provide, you know, in the actual grade? Some faculty choose 0. Okay, the default is 2, but 0, it actually will modify the grade. So if you have a 95, 94.8, it will actually round up to a certain grade, 96. Okay, and the same thing, it will also round down. But again, the common, you know, most faculty typically will leave it at the default of 2. Then you have the student view display, what the students will see. And then this is the typical one. You want to see them to see the actual points, otherwise they won't see anything. These are more optional kind of things that you know, again, you can choose. There's a grade scheme symbol. Some faculty use this. It doesn't really define anything specifically. It's a symbol that's associated with a grade item in the book, in the grade book, but it doesn't really have a specific legend of what it means. The same thing with the grade scheme color. This provides a color. There's a color scheme within the Folio gradebook, with green being very good and blue and down to yellow and red. Again, there's no specific legend to what that actually means. It's more of a visual cue. Some faculty like to use it, some don't. And again, this provides what the students would actually see. Then there's the decimal points. You know, again, the default is 2. This is the number of characters to be displayed for in the grade book. You want to try and keep the number of characters as small as possible, because otherwise it'll just stretch out the grade book quite a bit. The default is 15, and that seems to be sufficient, you know. And again, this is the option. Do you want, for the in the student's view of the grade book, do you want them to see the final grade? Again, you can choose not to, and then release the final grade afterwards when you're all complete. Okay. So this is the summary of it. It tells you what you've you know, what you've just done. You can choose to go back and change, or you can select to go finish. Okay. So let's start. Are there any, before we move on, with the setup wizard, are there any questions regarding that?
So I just have a quick one. In two different places, this is what kind of confuses me sometimes about the gradebook. It seems like in two different places you're checking things. Like, for example, the release final grade. There was one that was in kind of the instructor's setup, and then there's like you have to click another one when you're looking at the student's view. Do they do different things? Is it or both have to be checked? Like,
I think for in the instructor where you select it, if you don't, first of all, it would only, if you don't select it, the grades will not, if I go to the grade book, it will not show up in the final, the final grade right here. But then for the student, if it's not selected, they will not see it in their gradebook view.
okay.
So there are it's two different, so it depends on how you want, first, how you want the instructor gradebook to look and to display, and the second is for the student gradebook and display.
Okay.
So I think if I went to view a student, grades. Okay, so they actually will see their grade book in a different way. And because I did not select that for to be displayed for students, there's no final grade down below. So they're not going to see it. They'll see their individual grades for each of the specific assessment. If I went back in grades, I have to get out of a student view. Grades. If I do the setup wizard, I have to go through this. Continue. Okay, so here I did not have this selected, so it didn't show up in their grade book.
Okay.
So if I select that and continue, if I went to the student view, the final grade will appear as one of the options, okay, for them to see. So it is two different, that's one thing about Folio. I mean, there are sometimes it feels like you're duplicating things, but they do have a different purpose. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So next step is going to actually go to. Actually, let me go back to the setup wizard because we can show you from there. It's to actually create. Wish there was an easier way to go through this. And finish. Okay. So when you go through the setup wizard, you come upon this one screen called Grade Options. And this is for the grade book itself. There are two different things that you need to think about. One is what's called a grade category. And this is kind of like what I think of as an overall umbrella to a specific kind of assessment. So it could be quizzes or exams, or it could be, discussions, or if you do reflection journals, you could be, so it's a large overreaching category. The next thing is a grade item, and these are more the individual, um, uh, the individual, Lord, it's
The
making me
individual assessments, right?
assessment itself, right? I'm going through this. So if we went back to that, I don't know if I still have the
And
here we
while
go.
Steve's looking for that, I don't think we included our disclaimer, but we usually like to share with faculty to please just be resilient, because the first time Steve and I started working with the gradebook to prepare to teach this workshop, there was a learning curve. And in fact, it took us, a couple of iterations of attending the workshop before all the pieces kind of started falling together. So we'll be glad to work with you as you set up your gradebook.
Thank you, Julie. So again, here is one grade category, again, from that material that we pulled from the syllabus. We have discussions, quizzes, assignments, but you may name it something very different. You could call it, and it makes you go through this whole process to get to that one screen. Okay, so when you get to this grade option screen here, so here's where you could actually create your grade category. And I already have in place the grade categories that we just showed you. So, but I'm going to create one called reflection journals. So this could be whatever you choose, whatever kind of assessment that you have. Short name isn't necessary. You can put a description in. Grade, this is where you get to choose for this entire grade thing. Again, whether this grade category can exceed a higher point level. Whether you want to exclude this from this category. So say if you had self-tests scattered through your course that you're not actually grading students on, but you're just having them take and to try and learn from the course content or whatever they're doing, you can choose to exclude this specific category from the final grade itself. Distribution, if you select this, then if you have 5 quizzes, all your 5 quizzes are going to be worth the same value. Say if you could put in 100, so each quiz or each exam would be worth 100 points. If they're going to be worth a different value, you would leave that unclicked, so that unselected. Again, this is if you choose to drop the highest score that a student, one of the highest quizzes that student makes, you can choose to do that. Or if you want to choose one of the lowest scores, you can choose to give them that option as well. This is interesting. So some faculty like to use this. This is just more kind of a statistical thing for students to view. Do you want them to see their class average or how they display, how they grade compared to other users? This is a more graphical analysis, and this shows the class average, how they do to the class average. So some faculty don't want to show that. I'm going to select Save and Close. So again, this is it's still in the Manage Grades. You can see all these. Here's the reflection journal one that I just created. But here you can see this is already created. This is the discussions category that I created just like I did the reflection journal. Then there's an item, a grade item, and these are all the discussions for that that are in the course. These are all the quizzes that are in that course, and we'll show you how to actually create a grade item now. So if I do this, you can see how this actually indents the grade items, and this puts the grade item in the grade book directly underneath. I go through the enter grades. You could see how it kind of organizes so here is discussions, and you can see how it organizes all the discussions underneath this one big grade category. Same thing for quizzes. So by doing this, you're kind of helping to organize the grade book a little bit better, and the students will have a similar type of organization. So if I go back to there, I'm going to go and create. Now here you can choose from here, this window, a new grade item. I'm going to choose numeric. And this is going to be reflection journal 1. Oops. Okay. Okay. And again, for this grade item, you can choose to give it a shorter name. That could be, RJ1, something like that. And that's how it will show up in the grade book for both you and your student. So you want to make sure that they'll understand if you use a short name, that it's something that's understandable. You want it now, this is where you get where the grade item gets attached to the grade category. So from this drop down, you choose reflection journal. You can choose to put a description in. Now, because I chose to make all of the reflection journals evenly distributed, depending on how many I have, you get to change the point value. You can choose to change whether it can exceed, that item exceed a certain amount of points. If you're going to give bonus points, you're going to exclude this from this category. This is left alone. Here's where you can choose to add a rubric, for this one specific grade item. Okay. And I'm going to select Save and Close. And if I scroll down, now that Reflection Journal 1 is now indented, and it's a part of the grade category Reflection Journal. Okay. The next step, I guess maybe I should just stop before see if there's any questions about that, because that's can be a little bit confusing. Okay, Kelly's good. Okay. The next step is to, when you look at this association, at these columns right here, you can see this one discussion in the association column has this filled in. This is the actual, tells me that the actual discussion itself is now linked to this grade item. And if you do this, this isn't required, but if you do this, when you grade, and if you grade either an assignment or a discussion, that grade will automatically populate into the grade book. Okay, so if you use, again, here's a quiz. So say if you had a quiz or an exam that was, multiple choice, true, false, and that Folio would grade automatically. Once that is graded, it'll get pushed, and populated right into the grade book. So you don't have to do anything. Without this association, you would have to go look at the grade and then go into the grade book and actually put it in. So I'm going to show you how to actually do this. Okay, how to associate. So let's go to, there's a discussion. I'm going to go to the discussion forum. Discussions. That's fine. Okay, here's the module discussion area. And let's see, I think, what was the, let's see. Isolation. Okay. So, okay, so here's this isolation discussion forum. I'm going to select edit topic. Okay. And it's in the module discussion area. It's already now under assessment. Okay. This is where you actually choose the grade item that's been created. So here under discussions, okay, in the drop-down menu, you select the isolation. Now when I select save and close, if I go back to manage grades, okay, now isolation now has that the association. Okay. Again, the same thing with the quiz, the same quizzes, assignments, whatever you choose, by associating the actual assignment to the grade item, things will get populated into the gradebook. Okay.
Hey, Stephen,
Yeah.
show them the student view is of the gradebook.
Sure, it can do that. Let me go. I'm going to go select it. And this is something that if you haven't used yet, if you want to see what a student is viewing or seeing in your course, from your name and in the upper right, you can choose this view as student. Okay. And so everything that they see, that they see will be shown. So I'm going to go to grades, and the grades. And so this is how this is what their view will be. Okay. So again, here is the reflection journal that we just created. Okay. And again, until they take, till they take a quiz or whatever, this is just to show what the appearance will look like. Okay. I'm going to select out of that. Okay. And let's see. So the next thing to talk about. So is there any questions about that? About the next part we were going to talk about is navigating the gradebook. And I think it pretty much, I go to grades and grades. Okay. Again, we've pretty much talked about the three different options that that we have here. Actually up here, enter grades, manage grades, and the setup wizard. So you have an option, to select either of those depending on what you want to do. And again, in navigating the gradebook, again, it's helpful if you organize it so that you can see things, or underneath, so the grade items are underneath the categories. This option here is settings that you can actually choose to edit settings. Most people don't choose to do that, but here the grade scheme color is selected so that you will actually see the different colors. Again, green being the highest in value, down to red being a student's grade is not good. But most people choose not to change anything there. Again, the organization of the gradebook again is pretty much done through the manage grades, and then indenting, attaching the grade item to the grade category. Okay. Editing grades in a gradebook. Okay, so you can very easily do so. Say if there was a grade in here. Actually, there are two different. Let me show you the actually standard view that I should have shown you before, the gradebook. Okay, so here is the standard view, which you really don't have an option of making any changes or editing a grade. And again, this shows you the red because there's these are two demo students, guest user students. Because nothing has been done, it's showing up as red. So that shows what what using a grade scheme color would be. But by going to the spreadsheet view, this is where you can actually make a choice of changing a grade. Okay, so you can choose to, so if this was already filled in, you can actually choose to change a grade. Okay. Gradebook settings.
While you're there, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. Notice that for the students, it's guest user 1 and guest user 3. If you're trying to decide how to set up your gradebook, or if you have an issue that you want to test out, we do have some test user IDs that we can share with you to enter these test students in your course so that you can test out, different issues or the way you want to set up your course.
Great. Okay. And actually there's only one more piece to this, and that's how to delete a grade item. So let me go back to manage grades, and that would be deleting one of these. And the only reason I would think that you would do this is if you're changing from one term to another, and if you've copied your course from a previous term and you're bringing it over, and then you're going to make a change. So you wanted to make a change and you're no longer going to be doing this one particular item, this discussion question, and you're going to change it. To delete this grade item, if it's very easy to do, if it's not associated, okay, all you have to do is select the item and you can choose to delete it. It brings you to a second screen and it tells you, and this is really just to make sure that, are you sure you want to delete something? And then it gives you, are you sure you want to delete this? And it will let you do it, cancel that. But if you wanted to delete one of the grade items that was actually associated, it will not let you do that. Okay, this checkbox, you can check it here on the first screen. If I try to delete it, when it brings to the second screen, it won't let you do it. So you have to disassociate this grade item to the actual assessment, the discussion itself. So to do that, I'm going to go back to discussions, and I'm going to go to the isolation, discussion, edit, go back to the assessment, and here where it says where I've previously did the association, I'm going to remove it. So it just says now choose a grade item. I'm going to save and close. And now, when you go back to grades, manage grades, you can see now the association has gone. And now you can do the same thing. You can choose to delete that one grade item. Okay.